Hello YouTube. I'm going to tell you something interesting today, which has nothing to do with paranormal, but I think you will like it, and who knows, maybe you'll discover something new, and maybe it will even help some of you. I'm going to talk about buckwheat. Buckwheat packs an incredible nutritional punch. It promotes heart health and is a superb source of many key vitamins and minerals, including thiamine, niacin, and folate, as well as protein and fiber. And this is one of the superfoods of the Russian people. Buckwheat is one of those foods that releases energy slowly and steadily for hours. A bowl of buckwheat kasha can set you up for the day. And also, despite its name, buckwheat is gluten-free. Buckwheat, the word, it gets its name in English from the Dutch, who were so impressed with its hardiness and ability to thrive, even in bad soil, that they christened it buckwheat or buckwheat, likening it actually to the Bible itself. In English, kasha usually refers to buckwheat or its culinary preparations. In various East European countries, kasha can apply to any kind of cooked grain. It can be baked, but most often is boiled, either in water or milk, and therefore the term coincides with the English definition of porridge. But the word can also refer to the grain before preparation, which corresponds to the definition of groats. This English language usage, kasha, probably originated with Jewish immigrants, as did the form kashi, which translates, I guess, in Yiddish as porridges. Well, the largest gross buckwheat consumption per capita is in Russia, followed by Ukraine. In Russian, buckwheat is referred to formally as grechka, and buckwheat grains and buckwheat groats as grechnevaya krupa or grechnevaya kasha. Informally, buckwheat grain and buckwheat groats are called grechka. Modern medicine considers buckwheat as a dietary low-calorie product that contains a large number of antioxidants, substances that delay aging, and fiber. It contains vitamins A, P, E, B, vitamins, microelements, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and sodium, zinc, iodine, copper, fluorine, manganese, chromium, cobalt, molybdenum, silicon, as well as phytoestrogens and amino acids. Green, unroasted buckwheat lowers blood sugar levels, lowers blood pressure, and normalizes lipid metabolism. Buckwheat lowers the level of bad cholesterol, reduces the risk of blood clots, speeds up metabolism, serves as antidepressant, and helps fight cancer cells due to the content of flavonoids in it. Green sprouted buckwheat grains are used for weight loss and cleansing the body. One of the most useful products is buckwheat honey, which is used for the prevention and treatment of anemia, arteriosclerosis, heart diseases, gastrointestinal tract, and skin diseases. In folk medicine, crushed buckwheat leaves and flower lotions were used to heal wounds and boils. For skin diseases, the eyes were washed with the juice of the plant, the flower crushed into dust was used as a powder, and the joints and lower back were treated with heated buckwheat grits poured into a canvas bag. And I have to repeat, buckwheat honey has tremendous taste in addition to other useful properties. We consumed quite a lot of honey in Russia, Ukraine, Eastern Europe. Siberia has incredible honey products, and it's generally itself. I don't have to explain to you. Now, buckwheat has a property that suits the Russian military quite well. It is very slowly oxidized and therefore can be stored for a long time in army warehouses, up to 2 years. Can be used in long-distance campaigns, for example, on ships and submarines of the Navy, and is suitable as inviolable reserve in case of war. Other cereals and flakes do not have such stability and quickly deteriorate. Specialists of the laboratory of the Research Institute of Storage Efforts of the Federal Reserve store buckwheat groats in the warehouses of the Federal Reserve at temperatures from 0 to minus 10 degrees. If the temperature is lowered below, the buckwheat will not go rancid, but it will lose its properties. The process of destruction of vegetable protein, denaturation, will begin in the cereal, which will make it tasteless. Buckwheat is eaten not only by soldiers. Buckwheat is indispensable in Russian cuisine. Porridges and soups are also cooked from it. Lean cutlets are made. Buckwheat flour is added to pancakes and bread. This cheap cereal is indispensable in economically difficult years, and throughout history has saved many Russian families from starvation. It has really become an indispensable product of the soldiers' diet for centuries, and the famous buckwheat porridge with meat since the war has still not disappeared from the soldiers' diet. By the war, we mean World War II. It is included in the dry ration with a composition of stewed beef, buckwheat, beef fat, and spices. By the way, in Asian countries, buckwheat is also something that they love. In Japan and Korea, they make soba noodles from it. And in China, they even drink buckwheat. They brew tea from green grains there, which treats arterial hypertension. In the Russian food culture, the queen of cereals, as we call it, occupies a special place. Buckwheat porridge was adored by Russian emperors, soldiers of the Great Patriotic War or World War II, and Soviet cosmonauts in orbit. The famous Russian commander Alexander Suvorov called buckwheat heroic porridge. But to many other people, the ardent love of Russians for buckwheat seems at least to be a strange phenomenon. The difference in the attitude of Russians and Europeans to buckwheat is illustrated by a historical anecdote story about a conversation between Tsar Alexander III and the French ambassador at one of the receptions. Well, the French diplomat, wanting to kind of jab or make fun of the monarch, allegedly asked, "Is it true that they eat buckwheat in Russia?" The Tsar confirmed this fact. The ambassador then said that in France, this stuff is only given to cattle. Well, the emperor was not something who was looking for a response for a long time, and so he immediately put forward a counter question. Do the French eat frogs? The ambassador, of course, could not deny the well-known fact. And in Russia, even cattle don't eat this stuff, said Alexander III. Look, Russians eat a ton of buckwheat, and stockpiling it is very much baked into the national character. Whenever trouble, be it a regularly scheduled economic end of the world, invading armies, or as we're faced today, pandemic appear, some Russians who left the country for good or to stay abroad for work, they recall putting in their suitcases packets of buckwheat so they can live on something in the new country until they can get on their financial feet. In the modern world, buckwheat as a product for people is grown in only a few countries: China, Japan, Kazakhstan, Russia, and Ukraine. Russian buckwheat, however, can also be purchased in Europe and the United States, probably in other countries now. It is sold in specialized Russian stores. Residents of Russia who have moved to Europe or elsewhere, in Europe especially, they know that it's impossible to use European buckwheat for food. It is very different from Russian. It quickly gets boiled, turning into an unpleasant jelly. Look, the buckwheat groats sold outside Eastern Europe are simply not acceptable to us. Not to anyone familiar with the real things. And something is missing in North American buckwheat. The nutty outer layer, which is where the nutrients are found. This version turns to mush no matter what you do to it. Now you know why Russians abroad will trek vast distances to specialty food shops to stock up on real buckwheat. And we make sure the product is made in Russia or Ukraine, not elsewhere. I don't want to go into unnecessary details, but the real stuff is made in Russia or Ukraine. The history of buckwheat as an agricultural crop cannot be called simple. Ordinary buckwheat was domesticated by people not in the hearth of civilization in the Neolithic Near East, but thousands of kilometers from it. The birthplace of cultural buckwheat is the Chinese province of Yunnan, where the well-known grits were eaten 6,000 years ago. Well, I assume the Yellow Emperor had something to do with it. 2,500 years ago, buckwheat was planted by the people of northern India, and there it was called black rice. Through trade highways, so to say, agricultural crops penetrated the Levant and the Caucasus countries. Buckwheat came to Eastern Europe a long time ago, through the Balkans or perhaps through Siberia. According to archaeological excavations, buckwheat was grown in the lower reaches of the Don River already in the 1st to 2nd centuries AD. In the south of Kievan Rus, the ancient state of which my city was the center place. This culture was cultivated in the 10th century. According to one version, the special popularity of the cereal was acquired thanks to the Byzantine monks who lived in the Russian monasteries. The name buckwheat, grechka, is derived from the word Greek, grek. That's what some people say. Buckwheat has entered the diet of many peoples of Eastern Europe. Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Lithuanians, Poles, Ashkenazi Jews. Porridge was cooked from buckwheat. Meat dishes were stuffed with it. Thanks to the slow carbohydrates, this product gives a feeling of satiation, of being full for a long time. Buckwheat porridge is our mother, they said in Russia. There was even an informal holiday of buckwheat porridge. The dish was necessarily cooked on June 26, on the Saint Akulina's Day. While the Slavs' predilection for buckwheat is completely incomprehensible to their European neighbors, who for many centuries have not tasted this cereal, which has a special bitter taste. For example, buckwheat is not eaten in Hungary. In that country, it is sold in pet stores as bird food. A similar attitude to Turkish or Saracen grits has developed in Greece, Spain, Portugal, and Belgium. It is used as a fodder crop. In Germany, buckwheat, which the Germans call pagan grain, can still be bought mainly in the shops of Russian Germans, meaning former Soviet citizens of German ethnicity who emigrated to Germany. And that's from them that the word grechke soup, buckwheat soup, entered the German language. However, there are exceptions. Oddly enough, buckwheat porridge is also eaten in France, although it is popular only among the inhabitants of Brittany. That's what I was told. The peninsula has long been a zone of buckwheat cultivation, which gave here large and, most importantly, more stable yields than wheat. Until the 1930s, buckwheat porridge was the everyday food of the Bretons, but in the middle of the 20th century it was rejected as a symbol of poverty and rough taste. Only since the 1960s, the consumption of this product has resumed. However, now the Bretons do not cook porridge, but buy it in stores in ready-made form. The queen of cereals, buckwheat, in the New World was absolutely not in use in England and its colonies. For example, by the way, in Australia, this caused great inconvenience to Russian emigres. You can't get black rye flour and buckwheat groats for any money here. You can't eat porridge in Australia anymore. One of the White Guards complained in a letter to the Russian immigrant newspaper back in the 1920s. And the reference, by the way, when I say White Guard, is to those Russians who fought the Red Army and had to make their ways abroad after the communist victory and takeover. The situation was somewhat different in America, where there were a lot of immigrants from Eastern Europe already at the end of the 19th century. They introduced the Americans to buckwheat porridge. However, for most residents of the United States, buckwheat remains somewhat exotic. Now, let's talk about buckwheat flour. It is worth mentioning separately about black buckwheat flour, which is not so actively used in Russia, but it is more known in the world than cereals. In the same Brittany, traditional Breton pancakes and breads are baked from it. Poffered pancakes are prepared in the Netherlands, and polenta is cooked in northern Italy. In Austria, the famous dish Heidensterz is buckwheat flour dumplings fried with brisket. A lot of buckwheat flour is eaten in East Asia. In Korea, they bake buns called saemeduk, and in Japan, the traditional brown soba noodles are popular, which may have been borrowed from the inhabitants of northern China. Some scientists still believe that buckwheat came to Russia from the Greeks, from Constantinople. But this is not true, because the Greeks, after all, do not eat buckwheat. It is absent from their diet. There is another theory that explains the name of cereals, grechka, again, because first in Russia, buckwheat was cultivated by monks who came from Byzantium. Because the bitter taste of buckwheat porridge fully corresponds to the philosophy of asceticism practiced by Orthodox monks. The third theory of the appearance of buckwheat in the Russian expanses relates to the Mongol invasion. Perhaps it could have been brought to Russia by the Golden Horde merchants, and also there is a belief or a hypothesis that the culture penetrated into Russia through Bulgaria, where there are large markets where numerous merchants from Asia and the East came to trade. Most likely this is where the second name of buckwheat arose, Tatarka or Tatar plant. And when we talk about Bulgaria, we're speaking about the Volga Bulgarians, not the other East Europeans. Well, already in the beginning of our era, buckwheat was cultivated in the territories of southern Siberia, in the mountainous Shoria, and then penetrated beyond the Urals. This is evidenced by archaeological finds. It's very interesting that, to me, that buckwheat, to me, it's like to many Russians, it's an essential grain, a cereal product, that it came from the land of ancient China and places like Urals. And you've seen a lot of my videos about strange phenomena there. Maybe somebody gave this grain, so to say, this cereal to us. Maybe not. It's just thinking aloud. Anyway, in addition to Russia, Asian buckwheat has not taken root in any European country. Again, Europeans believe that the buckwheat porridge is bitter and has a specific taste. And as I said, throughout Europe and in the United States, it is grown only as a fodder crop. While not denying its useful properties, buckwheat is the best product for a healthy lifestyle. However, it is worth remembering that until recently, cattle were fed with bran, the usefulness of which was found out only recently. And now any product with the addition of bran is considered dietary and costs more. In Russia, buckwheat is grown in the Altai territory, Bashkirland, the Tatarstan, the Krasnodar territory, Ryazan, Tula, Orenburg, Kursk, Bransk regions, Transbaikal, that's where the Lake Baikal is, the Amur region, and in the Far East, in the maritime province, of which I told you a number of stories, and will tell you more. It is known that the Rosreserve or Russian Federal Reserve warehouses, that the list of products that are in the Rosreserve warehouses and their numbers, they're classified. But there is no doubt that there are hundreds of tons of buckwheat among them. After all, it was during 2014 when there was talk and action about uncorking these stocks. when there was a jump in prices for buckwheat growers in the country. And with the pandemic, of course, the prices went up too, like everywhere. Recall that the Russian Federal Reserve is designed to meet the needs of the army during hostilities, provide humanitarian assistance, and eliminate various emergency situations, including price regulation during economic crises. So, what do you do with those cool, nutty, nutrient-rich buckwheat groats? Well, you could make simple porridge and serve it with lots of butter or grated cheese. You could make a wonderful vegetarian dish of buckwheat and mushrooms, or you could cook with meat. It is great with meat. You might swap it as your evening starch instead of rice or potatoes. Buckwheat's nutty flavor is great for grilled meat and oily fish. We also cooked buckwheat with milk, or even better, after you eat buckwheat, you chase it with kvass. Kvass is yet another brilliant invention inspired by the Russian dislike to throw away bread. This is a phenomenon that is not well understood in other countries. Let's just say that we were taught by our parents that bread is something sacred, because so many times in our history we have had starvations from natural phenomena and from those who shoved socialism and collectivism down our throats and destroyed the ability of Russia to feed its people. Kvass is brewed by combining black and rye rusks with raisins, sugar, yeast, and water, and allowing the mixture to ferment for several days. I recall how my mother made it from black Ukrainian bread. Kvass has a taste that is all its, and a refreshing glass of cold kvass comes in very handy in hot weather. I remember how in my youth, kvass, that's how we pronounce it, was sold in the USSR from Soviet prototypes of the vending machines, where for a few pennies or kopecks, you would get, I think it was 250 milligrams of kvass would be put into a communal spout, into a communal faceted glass tumbler, which, when returned to the machine, received fleeting spritz of water to clean it for the next customer. Yeah, people drank that way, and I don't recall that many people were getting sick, by the way. Anyway, it tastes great and has many health benefits of kvass. They come as a delightful bonus. The natural yeast in kvass provides excellent digestive support and all the accompanying benefits of fermented foods. Folk beliefs suggest that kvass promotes fertility, which is why it was always served to brides at weddings. But you know what, I'm kind of leery of the now mass-produced kvass in plastic bottles. Kvass should be brewed at home with no additives or preservatives. People say that great kvass is produced in some Greek Orthodox Russian monasteries, and that the kvass it's really good there. Kvass should also be consumed as soon as it is ready and cold enough. This is the one beverage that the Russians insist on drinking well chilled. We have other products, but I just wanted to bring your attention to the grechka, so to say, the buckwheat, and to kvass. And in the future, I'll tell you other stories about foods and traditions in the largest country on this planet. If you can support my research, please do it. You can see the links in the description of this video. I appreciate your attention, and I'll speak to you soon. Please subscribe to my channel and tell others. Thank you.